Saturday, Sunday before the really truly hot kicks in. And so I'm encouraging everyone to do that. I cannot emphasize this enough. Extreme heat can be deadly. Dr. McDonald will share some details on how to spot a heat stroke in either someone you know or just someone you see at the workplace or on the street, and also how to avoid it in the first place. But very simply, the best way is to stay safe, to stay indoors with air conditioning. This is not the time to start training for the marathon, okay? Stay indoors. You'll get back on your normal schedules. Life will return, but this is a critically important week to be smart for you and your families. If you have to go outside, drink lots and lots of water. There are records on how much, if you're working outside, how much water you should be consuming by the hour. And avoid caffeine and alcohol. I know that's hard for a lot of New Yorkers, both of those or either of those. But listen, this is going to have an effect on your body and your overall health. Let's remember who we are as New Yorkers. We check on our neighbors, see if there's anything we can pick up for them, especially our older neighbors. Let them stay inside, or a mom with little children. Help everybody out. Take precautions, extra precautions with your own kids and pets. Absolutely do not leave them unattended in a hot car. Could be deadly. And be really nice and gracious to your local healthcare workers and emergency responders. They're out there in the same heat, and they're dedicating themselves to making sure that you are okay through this environmental health crisis. The next couple of days are going to be very uncomfortable, but by Thursday, we can celebrate. The heat should break. In the meantime, New Yorkers, stay cool, stay hydrated. Most of all, stay safe. Now I'll turn it over to Executive Deputy Commissioner O'Leary and let him tell you what we need to know over the next few days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. I'm Terry O'Leary, the Executive Deputy Commissioner at the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. We've had a very active week in terms of weather, and unfortunately, we're expecting that to continue for several more days. This week started out with heavy rains across Western New York, the Finger Lake, and the Southern Tier. Over 3 inches of rain fell in parts of Livingston County, Rochester, and the rest of Monroe County. Yesterday afternoon, we had temperatures in the 90s and strong rainstorms swept across the state. Now we're entering the first prolonged period of extreme heat this summer. This weekend, the National Weather Service is forecasting that temperatures will rise and remain high through at least Wednesday. Major to extreme risk of heat-related impacts are possible starting on Sunday across the state. On Sunday, feel-like temperatures may reach up or above 100 degrees, particularly in Western New York, Finger Lakes, Southern Tier, and Mid-Hudson regions. The Southern Tier may experience the highest temperatures on Sunday. On Monday, feels-like temperatures will be 95 and maybe even up to 110 degrees across all of New York State, while overnight temperatures will be only at 70 to 85 degrees and even higher in the urban areas. There won't be much relief overnight. On Election Day, Tuesday, it feels like temperatures will range from 85 again to 105 or even 110 degrees statewide. Feels like temperatures will begin to lower into the 90s in certain portions on Wednesday, with relief finally coming on Thursday with temperatures back into the 70s or 80s. Here at the division, our Office of Emergency Management is working closely with our local partners statewide to provide any assistance that may be needed. State agencies are working together and are prepared to respond. To minimize potential impacts and reduce response times to heat-related events, New York City Transit will implement heat patrols to proactively increase track inspections and stage extra personnel in key risk areas, including power substations, machine rooms, generators, cables, and connections. To ensure functioning air conditioning, subway rail cars and buses are all being inspected prior to being placed into service. The Department of Public Service is tracking electric system conditions and overseeing utility response to any situations that may arise, and they have been in direct contact with all utilities to ensure they are preparing their systems for the extreme heat. New York's utilities have approximately 5,500 workers available to engage in damage assessment, response, repair, and restoration efforts across New York State for this event. DPS staff will track the utilities' work throughout the event and ensure utilities shift staffing to regions that experience the greatest impact. During heat events, New York State has the capacity for over 40,000 megawatts to be available. The New York State Independent System Operator will track, and in instances of low voltage or isolated power outages, they can shift resources as needed. Based upon current conditions, NYISO forecasts that there will be an adequate supply of electricity to meet demand throughout the coming week. Our latest summer assessment indicates that we will see approximately a load of less than 33,000 megawatts, well within available power. The Department of Ag and Markets has compiled important information as well, including preventative measures to help mitigate the effects of extreme heat on farm workers and farm animals. And they are working closely with partners at Cornell University's New York Extension Disaster Education Network to monitor any potential impacts of extreme heat on the agriculture section. The Office of Children and Family Services is taking a number of actions to ensure activities at residential centers, detention programs, and congregate care programs are all conducted in a safe manner during the heat. The New York State Department of Labor has released comprehensive guidance to help employers better protect outdoor workers during extreme heat and advises workers and employers to engage in extreme heat best practices. And these are just a few of the examples of the steps being taken at the state level, and we are continuing to partner with our local partners as well. On another note, New Yorkers should also plan to not only take care of themselves, but also take care of their pets during this period of extreme heat. Make sure to provide ample water indoors and outdoors, limit outdoor activity, and if outdoors, rest in shaded areas regularly. Be mindful of pavement temperatures. Hot surfaces may cause burns on paws, so consider walking on grass or even using pet boots. Never leave pets unattended in vehicles, and know the signs of heat stroke in pets, including excessive panting, drooling, lethargy, vomiting, and stumbling. At this point, I would like to turn it over to the state's doctor and health commissioner, Dr. McDonald, for further updates and information.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. So good morning. I'm Dr. Jim McDonald, Commissioner of the New York State Department of Health. You know, heat events and extreme heat are becoming more common in New York State. And I think it's one of those things where we just need to recognize this is a significant health event. And one of the key things we want to keep in mind is like, what are we trying to prevent? Really, when you think about this, like, why are we having the conversation? What do we want to prevent? Everyone is at risk when you have extreme heat, yet not everyone is at the same risk. Elderly folks, 65 and older, anyone who's pregnant, the very young, anyone with an underlying health condition are at higher risk. That's a lot of us New Yorkers. And I think it's just really important to understand there's risk. When we see these events, there is risk. I think one of the things we want to say is, well, what do we want to prevent? I don't want you to get sick. I don't want you to end up in the emergency department. I don't want you to end up in the hospital. I don't want you to pass away. These events do kill people, and it's a preventable death. So I think this is why it's very important just for us to take a step back and look at this extreme weather event and say, how do I prepare? And it really gets to like, well, what are we trying to avoid again? I think it really gets this issue of like, what does a heat injury look like, right? So when you think about what a heat injury is, how does a heat injury start? So often when you're outside, I think the key thing to remember is heat injury sneaks up on all of us. You know, it doesn't just start and all of a sudden you're sick. You may start feeling faint, maybe a little dizzy, maybe nauseous. In other words, a little sick to your stomach. Then you might feel some weakness. Maybe can't walk straight. You see how it progresses, right? And then you get muscle cramps, might progress to confusion, even convulsions, loses consciousness. And then you get this high temperature, well over 104 degrees. What we're trying to prevent is a heat injury. And I think it's really important to say, like, well, what can I do to prevent a heat injury? So I want to first start with just some healthy habits that you should do every day. And I just want to here's something I do to start my day every day. Every day, I wake up, I start with a tall glass of ice water. I drink water all day long because I love water, but, you know, really recommend as you start your day, just start with a glass of water. Because when we go to bed at night and sleep at night, we're dehydrating overnight. So your body would treasure just a nice tall glass of water every day. That's one good, really healthy habit. But it's really important to just drink plenty of water. It's important to be in an air-conditioned environment. It's also important to find a cooling center if you need one. And by the way, I have a useful website for you. It's health.ny.gov/heat dashboard. So if you go to health.ny.gov/heat dashboard, you'll find you can see the forecast for extreme heat. I have a nice color-coded chart so you can look at the risk. By the way, we also have data there on how many people have ended up in the emergency department or had to call emergency medical services. So if you like data, you can see that. But that web page is helpful. But let's talk about things we can do just to avoid getting dehydrated during the day. So when you think about water, how much water you need to drink, if you're outside on a hot day like, we're going to see here, really hot days, you need to drink a lot of water. Now, I have just to show you there, this is a little over a quart of water. It's really quite a bit when you look at it, right? But if you're outside working in the heat and you're outside doing something, you need to drink one of these every single hour. That's intentional work. And really, when we think about dealing with extreme heat events, we have to be very intentional about what we do. So one of these every hour is what you need to drink. Obviously, they're refillable, and tap water is just fine. I just wanted to illustrate, this for you today, but really, that's a fairly large amount of water you need to drink here. I think it's really important to have plenty of water here. But one of the other things we need to think about when we want to prevent a heat injury, it's not just what we drink, is it? The New York State Department of Health has always told you to eat healthy food, right? We've never told you to drink sugary beverages or processed food, but I just want you to think about this for just a minute here. So, by the way, it's strawberry season in New York, right? Beautiful strawberries all over New York. Wonderful time to have strawberries, right? But strawberries are a healthy, nutrient-dense food, right? It's not just filled with antioxidants, vitamins, but there's water in strawberries. Fruit, vegetable, lean proteins, this is what we need to be eating. Processed food concerns me. And by the way, this is a quart of strawberries, a lot of strawberries. You know what? There's the same amount of calories in one breakfast pastry treat. This is strawberry breakfast pastry treat. That's a flavor, not a food, my friends. That's nutrition. This concerns me because when you live on processed food, you're not drinking enough water. You put yourself a little bit higher risk, my friends. So remember, let's eat our fruits and vegetables, support our New York farmers, and that'll help us in the long run, by the way. But access to a healthy diet, always a good idea. Get those nutrients and vegetables you need there. Now, as you limit outdoor activity, walk in shade when you can. If you're outside working, try to cover your head, wear a hat if you can, just so you don't get sunburned. Some of us have lost a little bit of hair back there, and it's hard to put sunscreen where we have the hair there. So that's important as well. It's very important to wear sunscreen when you're outside working as well. One of the things I'm very careful about is sunscreen can appear really very quickly, puts it at a higher risk for skin cancer over the long term, but also it hurts in the short term, doesn't it? So that's important as well. I think one of the last things I want to tell you is really important to check on your neighbors, check on your family and your friends, especially those at high risk. But the last point I want to give you is, I think let's just all be a little bit honest with each other, right? When it's really hot like this, don't we all get a little bit irritable, a little bit short-tempered, a little bit harder to get along with? It's really important to be gracious with each other. If you see someone flying off the handle, don't respond with anger. Just recognize, wow, they're having a hard moment. Let me extend some grace and mercy and just take a step back. I love New York. I love New Yorkers. One of the things I've just found, I've lived all over the world, but we have some of the nicest people in New York, but we have our moments, my friends, right? So I think it's really important to just be kind to each other during these times because it's going to be a challenge for the next few days here. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back to see if there's any questions.
Thank you. We will now begin the Q&A portion of today's program. If you would like to ask a question, please use the raise hand function on your screen and we will call on you and unmute your microphone. Thank you. We have a question from Dan Clark. Dan, please ask your question. We will unmute your microphone.
Hey, Commissioner. Sorry if this is not your area, but I know that the PSC is considering some regulations to kind of normalize or equalize when utility companies can't shut off the electric services of somebody during extreme heat events. So is there anything that during this extreme heat event that the state is doing to say to utility companies, hey, don't turn off somebody's electricity, they could die from that?
So you're right. That's not my main area, but I do want to just sort of offer something here, right? So your point is well made, right? In other words, during a time like this, air conditioning is life-saving. So, I think it's really important. Most people who have these issues should be talking to their doctor to get that form filled out for the utility companies. But let me have the team get back to you a little bit on the question you asked Tiffany about the regulatory detail on that. Thank you.
And that will conclude today's program. Thank you for joining.
This has been breaking news.
Good morning. We've made it to Friday and we've made it to our pick of the week. It's not as hot, it's not as humid, and certainly not as stormy. Take the sunglasses. It's bright skies all day long with temperatures more or less what you'd expect this time of the year, mid-80s. It's a tremendous day. It's a nice breeze too. Upper 80s as we kick off the weekend, mostly sunny skies. There'll be some clouds at times, maybe a stray shower. And then we're in the heat. 90s return by Sunday, high humidity through next week.
Just before the official start of summer, new rules are in place for those looking to head to the Seaside Heights Boardwalk. As Christy Kalishan explains, the changes come after a violent start to Memorial Day weekend.
Did you win it by yourself?
Lisa Haney and her family gave the boardwalk another shot on Thursday. The last time she was here was on Memorial Day weekend, which saw unruly crowds leading to an early shutdown.
We haven't been back since, so we figure we'd try again now that things are a little bit better.
She and her family feel a little more at ease now after 5 ordinances were passed at a borough council meeting Wednesday night, hoping to prevent nights like those. Seaside Heights Mayor Tony Voss.
We've strengthened our ordinances, we've strengthened state laws. You're going to have the consequences.
The ordinances include banning most bags larger than 8 by 6 inches, closing the boardwalk on Sundays to Thursdays at midnight and at 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights and on holidays. Increased fines for homeowners renting to minors or guests who get the police called on them, and stricter penalties overall for those disrupting the peace on the boardwalk and for those spreading the word on social media about large gatherings.
We know we got a problem, we know who causes the problem, and we've made solutions.
We shouldn't have to do this, but